Good evening, fiends. Welcome to Sinister Parlor Podcast. I am Zombie Barbie, and tonight I have a very special guest and my very first guest for the new podcast, director, writer, artist, model, podcaster, everything that you can possibly think of, he does. Johnny Daggers.
Hello.
Hello.
Friend.
How are you?
I am good. Thank you. It's a pleasure and an honor to be part of the first episode.
Yes.
The Sinister Parlor episode, number
Hell
one.
yeah. I'm so excited. Well, it's like I was thinking earlier. So we've known each other, 11, 12, 13 years. And this is the first time we've done something together.
I was thinking, 13. I was thinking 14. I could be off a year. Yeah, it's been a while.
It could be 14. I mean, it's been a long ass time.
Yeah.
Like,
so it's good to finally, collaborate on, a show together.
Yes.
Always exciting.
Yes. So before we started recording, you were talking about that, which I did want to bring up just because it's really cool. But you were one of the first podcasters ever.
Yeah. That's crazy. Basically, Live 365. I think it's still around too. It launched in the mid 90s, like 96 or 97. And I signed up. I had always been a journalist. I started my first magazine in 1995 called Golgotha Magazine.
I remember that.
And it was a punk industrial goth magazine, and just interviewed a bunch of cool bands. Marilyn Manson was the first band that we ever interviewed for the magazine. Then came FDM and
really
all kinds of people, and I did Golgotha for like 5-6 years, and then Live 365 launched, and I like all kinds of different music, and I wanted to launch I launched a rockabilly magazine called Turn Up Speed, which was based off of the first. I'm a huge James Dean fan, and the first James Dean book that I ever read, the gentleman that killed James Dean in the car crash is Donald Turnipseed. But the first book that I ever read, they misprinted his name and they spelled his last name Turnipseed. So all these years, I was thinking, how ironic is that? He gets killed in a car crash by the guy with the last name Turnipseed. But then I later found out that it was just a typo in that novel that I had. But anyway, I was always like, well, when I started my rockabilly magazine, I called it Turnip Speed for that very reason. And that was about the time that Live 365 started up, and I signed on to do a radio show to coincide with the magazine, and therefore, I didn't know podcasting was going to be that big of a thing all these years later. But yeah, I was started off with the Turn Up Speed broadcast, and then that ran for a couple years, and I did an all Cure podcast called headonthecure.net, and I interviewed all the Cure members, past and present, and the show played like live concerts and the interviews that I did, and so that was fun because Cure have always been one of my favorite bands. So
Cure is amazing.
Sit down, like interview Robert Smith. I interviewed him on the phone and then in person when they came to Cuyahoga Falls, Ohio for the Curiosa tour. So that was just super awesome. And then everybody else, that was past and present from the Cure. So I did that for a while. And then, did the Dagger Vision Films podcast like in 2011 or 12. Did that for a year with my old buddy Brian Connington. So I have a lot
I remember
of
that. Because you guys have traveled sometimes too, huh?
Pardon me?
Wouldn't you guys travel sometimes to like radio stations and stuff and do like interviews?
No. What you're thinking of is I was invited because that you're probably thinking of some of the shows that I was asked to come out for to be interviewed for my film Caustic Zombies back in 2011. I got to couple radio shows in Ohio had me out to talk about the film and stuff. But Brian and I, for our podcast, we went to some conventions. We set up the podcast at a couple conventions, but we didn't really go to other shows so much. Just a couple conventions. I think we did Pittsburgh Horror Realm, and then I think we did a Cinema Wasteland in Ohio. We broadcast from there once, but yeah, and now, oddly enough, I'm back into the podcasting world in my spare time, which is very minimal. But I have, it's called the Screwed, Glued, and Tattooed Radio Show, where I'm back to interviewing a lot of rockabilly bands and like alternative country, like Hank Free and stuff like that. So
Damn, you got connections. I didn't know that you had interviewed Marilyn Manson too. That's awesome.
yeah, that's actually a funny story. So at the time, like it was right before Marilyn Manson got big. It was probably right after, the Spooky Kids broke up or whatever. And, Manson was just starting.
Mhm.
I was a fan, but like, it's not really my thing. And my buddy Tom, however, was like a huge Manson fan. And he was like, I really want to go see Marilyn Manson. They're coming to town in a couple of weeks. And man, like, I'll openly admit this. I didn't want to go. If I went, I didn't feel like spending money on the tickets. So I was working construction at the time. And one day during construction, I thought, the club they were playing at, my best friend from kindergarten all through our early 20s, his brother actually ran that club. So I was like, I'll reach out to Doug and I'll tell him that I started a fanzine and that, like, I want to get tickets to interview Manson and like blah, blah, blah. So it was like a whole farce because I didn't have a magazine. I was just like, oh, just to get in so I didn't have to pay. And I reached Doug and Doug was like, yeah, I don't have anything to do with that anymore, but you'll have to contact the concert promoter. And so the concert promoter was a real dickhead, but I contacted the promoter and he was like, I don't have anything to do with it either. You have to contact the band's record label. And I was like, well, this is getting to be a bit more involved than I wanted it to be. They were, Interscope Records, or Nothing Records. It was Interscope PR, Formula PR was doing the publicity for them. So I reached out and I was like, hey, I have this fanzine and I'm like local to the Pittsburgh area. I'd be interested in doing an interview with Marilyn Manson. Arrested. Yeah. Well, that was a Freudian slip with some other things. But yeah, I was like, did I just say that? But no, so I reached out and they said, well, you'll have to fax us a copy. Fax,
back when faxes.
Yeah, they're like, you will have to fax us a copy of your cover for your magazine and at least 2 or 3 articles that you have written, like music reviews, concert reviews, or something like that. Well, this is back, in the early 90s. So I don't have a computer, that was right before it was a household thing for most people. My buddy Tom did. So they said, okay, fax us over the cover, a couple articles. She said, I'll show it. If I like it, she's like, I'll show it to the band. And if they like it, she's like, not to, be a negative Nancy or anything, but they don't really like anything. But I'll show it to them if I like it. And if they agree to do it, then there you go. So I'm like, okay. So I hung up and I'm like, shit. All right. Well, there's a possibility I could get this interview, but I don't have a computer. I don't even have a magazine. Go over to Tom's house, like came up with an idea right off the top of my head and call it Golgotha Magazine. Made a cover for it. And I had just seen a couple concerts that month. So I just remembered the best that I could. What those shows were like, wrote up a couple concert reviews, and he also had a fax machine, so I faxed everything over to the Formula publicity. And like 2 days later, I got a call, and her name was Stephanie. I never forget this. She's like, congratulations, not only did I like it, but I showed it to the band, they liked it. So I had 2 free tickets, 2 press passes, photo pass, all that stuff. And so I thought, wow, okay, so let's just do the magazine for real then, since we kind of have our foot in the door. So that is actually how I got my foot in the door with that. And then from there, interviewed Typo Negative and Thomas from the Electric Hellfire Club and KMFDM and Raymond Watts from Pig and Leslie Rankin from Ruby and Stabbing Westward and like all kinds of, industrial bands, Switchblade Symphony and like all kinds of people. So that was, yeah.
Wow.
Early start to all that kind of stuff. It just started on a little white lie. But,
yeah, but fuck, it worked. That's awesome.
Yeah. I don't think that would ever work nowadays, but back in the early 90s,
yeah. Yeah, now they have internet, they'll be Googling everything to check up on you.
Yeah, like, exactly.
Geez. Oh, that's ridiculous. So I forgot to add in the beginning, you're also a musician.
Ooh.
You do everything.
Well,
you're like, well, yes, I do.
People are very flaky, as you probably know.
Oh, so
my philosophy is learn to do as much as you possibly can. Therefore, you don't have to rely on other people.
There you go.
So, especially, in film, if you can pick up a camera and shoot a film and light it yourself and edit it yourself and compose some, if not all of the soundtrack or anything, and also, do graphic design and design your own DVD cover and your own, or your own record cover. Like it's a lot easier the more that you don't have to rely on other people. So that's always been my motto.
Yeah.
So
I forgot you do graphic design too.
Yeah.
It's like all these years, it's like you always add to the collection of I can do this and I can do this and I can do this. And I'm trying to remember, like when I first met you, I can't remember if it was modeling that I had met you through, or I remember you did, was it Gore Nor? You did that really badass photo shoot where you had that guy or that girl like locked in the cage and that bloody guy and there was like body parts everywhere.
Yeah, but we knew each other before that though, because the Gore Nor, they did that feature on me in 2011, I think, or 2000.
Oh, okay.
So we had been friends prior to that. But yeah, they, that's how I accidentally fell into the modeling world, which I think was absolutely silly. But, I kind of went with it. But I was, just people would want to do interviews for the films and whatnot. And to coincide with that, they would always want a headshot or some type of photo to go with it for the magazine. And so, for Gore Nor, they did the interview and I was like, well, it's a really bloody magazine. So I did a really bloody photo shoot from them. And then it was like maybe a month or two after that, I got contacted by a modeling agency that was like, hey, we sign alternative models and would love to have you aboard. And I just kind of thought it was really stupid and silly. But
You did
I was
good,
like,
though.
yeah.
You had so many cool shoots.
Yeah, so I did that for a little while. And it was kind of like a fun, hobby type thing, but I never really took it serious too much. So it was neat. It was fun.
All right. So let's get into filmmaking.
Mhm.
What was your very first film that you directed?
I was a short film, 21 minutes long, entitled Samhain Night Feast, and that was in 2010.
Nice. And
Nobody was ever supposed to find out about that film either.
Really?
Yeah, it was, well, as you know, because we've been friends for 14 years, and then we talked a little bit before the show, I never aspired, to be a filmmaker. It was 2010. I was just really sick and tired of Hollywood remakes and sequels. And, I still to this day don't really watch horror movies that are older than, I'll get into the 80s, but most of the stuff that I like is like the Twilight Zones and, all the old, 50s, B horror films. And I'm not really into the new cinema styles. I think horror's, not that there's anything wrong with it, just for me, I'm not really into, the vulgarity and the nudity and the violence and all that kind of stuff. I like the older style. So I just wanted to make a short film that I would enjoy watching, something that kind of had like a Hitchcock vibe to it.
Mm-hmm.
So, I didn't have any equipment to speak of, but, I knew that my grandmother had a camcorder, tape camcorder too, but that wasn't even digital. So I'm like, cool. So I'll borrow that off of her. I'll get a couple friends together, and it was just an excuse to get drunk and make a movie.
There you go.
So
it's fun, it's fun.
Yeah, we shot it like I think in a night and a half, and it was just supposed to be a film for myself and my friends. And about a week or two after I finished editing the film, which this is so funny, I didn't even have editing equipment back then. So I had a DVD VCR, like I had a VCR/DVD burner, so that like I could burn VHS tapes onto DVDs.
Mm-hmm.
So I told you we were shooting on the camcorder, which was film. So I loaded that up in the VHS side and, put in a blank DVD. And it was almost like making a mixtape in the 80s. Every time that the scene would stop where I would need to actually cut in the video editor, I would just hit pause. Oh. You can't even tell the difference. It like literally looked like I, had professional editing equipment and edited it. So I put the movie together that way.
Wow.
And then about a week after it was edited, that's when I met Brian Coddington. I met him on Craigslist because after I edited it together, I was just looking for an editor to kind of just give it a little bit of extra grain to it to give it that like 50s vibe, you know, because I didn't have any editing software. I found Brian and he came in and put like a little bit more like the grittiness to it to make it look a little bit more old fashioned. And then about a week after it was all done, I got an email from my cousin, Mario, and he was like, hey, did you know that the Bastards of Horror Short Film Festival are screening Samhain Night Feast? And I'm like, what? Like, yeah, how did anybody even find out about this film, let alone it's being shown at a film festival?
Yeah.
So I reached out to two gentlemen, Tim Gross, who you may be familiar with. He writes the Gross horror movie book review, like they're massive volumes of movies, really revered in the horror community. And then his partner, Charlie Fleming, they're the two that put together the festival. So I reached out to them and I'm like, really? So you somehow saw Samhain Night Feast and you're showing it at the festival? And he's like, yep. I was like, cool. Can I at least have 2 free tickets to come watch my movie, you know, on the big screen? And they're like, yeah, cool. So, you know, I didn't take it serious. I figured, you know, I'm going up against seasoned filmmakers that knew what they were doing. I didn't have a clue. I didn't even have equipment. I was just somehow barely put this movie together. And so this is in my really heavy drinking days. I bought a case of beer. My buddy Josh bought a case of beer, and we went to the convention and got completely wasted before the festival started. So I'm outside having a cigarette, and Sam Hain's probably 5 minutes into it, and somebody comes out and they're like, you need to get inside immediately. Like, they're showing Sam Hain. I was like, oh shit. So I go running in. I'm drunk, you know.
You're all stumbling.
And, yeah, I'm stumbling. I'm drunk. And there's some subtle humor in Samhain Night Feast that like you would have to be a horror fan to get. There's some subtle Halloween 3 references and like a little bit of, you know, just a little bit of horror humor in there. And because I'm drunk and I'm already paranoid because like I never wanted anybody to see this movie, I walk into the theater and everybody's laughing. And I was like, oh shit, like they're laughing at the screen. Like, this is terrible. Like, they are literally laughing me off the screen. So I kind of like slouched down in my chair and I was like, this is terrible.
Glasses on. You're like, it's not me.
Yeah, they're all going to laugh at you. They just like they were. But then what I quickly found out is when the movie was over, everybody gave me a standing ovation. And Tim Gross walked up to the front of the room and he's like, that's it. Hands down, Samhain Night Feast was tonight's winner. Johnny Daggers, please come up and do a Q&A. And it was at that point where I'm like, shit, they understood the humor. That they weren't laughing because it was a joke. They were laughing at the jokes that I'd written in. And then I had to pretend that I was sober and get up in front of everybody and do a Q&A. So that is how I first got into filmmaking. And that's when I thought, wow, if we can make a short film without even trying and having no idea what the hell we were doing and it won a film festival, let's just do this for real. So again, everything in my life just happens for some fuck of a reason. I have no idea why.
That's awesome,
and so
though.
that's
I need your luck.
kind of how. What's that?
I said I need your luck.
I have terrible luck though. Outside of like a few breaks here and there with things like, yeah, it's always a black cloud of sorrow hanging above my head. But yeah, so yeah, that's how I got into filmmaking, and you know, here we are 10 years later, and still doing it and on your show. So that's awesome.
Yeah, that's freaking super awesome. And then the next one after that was that Caustic Zombies.
Yeah, sadly.
Oh no, did you not? You don't like that one?
Yeah, I mean, so you know, with Caustic Zombies, I broke all the rules. You know, you're supposed to film as many short films as you possibly can so you know what the hell you're doing. And I was like, that's it. You know, I throw caution to the wind. I made a short, fuck it, that's out of the way. Let's just go for it and do a feature. So, you know, I started working on Caustic Zombies. And I mean, that was like a whole whirlwind that swept up around that film. 105.9 The X, which is a huge radio station in Pittsburgh, started calling it the greatest zombie movie since, you know, me being from Pittsburgh and also home of George Romero, Night of the Living Dead, you know, they were calling it like the greatest film since Night of the Living Dead. This is the first time that like, you know, I just did a 20-minute short and all of a sudden like I announced I'm doing Caustic Zombies and I'm getting calls from publications in the UK like wanting to do interviews and talk about the movie and shit. And I'm like, I don't even fucking know my craft. You know what I mean? Like I haven't even worked long enough to know what the hell I'm doing. And so it was like just a whirlwind of like being caught up in excitement. And it's like, imagine doing what you love to do and everybody watching you as you just begin, instead of like, I wished I had like 10 years under my belt where nobody knew me, where I could learn my craft and become an actual filmmaker. All of a sudden, it was like, as soon as I started, everybody was watching. And that was that I don't like about it. And you know, Caustic Zombies, like the first day that we started filming, it hit the front news of the local paper. And we had like 150 to 200 people show up to watch us film, like in the middle of downtown. Like they thought it was funny. They thought we were doing a remake of either Night of the Living Dead or Dawn of the Dead or something, because it was a zombie movie. Like that, it's all original. But we had police escorts. I mean, the police barricaded roads off for us, and we had military vehicles in the movie. And I had to alert the authorities because, you know, we had these big giant 50-gallon drums that were painted with you know, radioactive symbols on them. And so, you know, post 9/11, you don't want anybody to think like there's some type of biohazard or reason to quarantine. So I had to alert the police. We had roadblocks, and you know, they escorted us places, and we were treated like real movie stars. It was like crazy, you know, and everything was going good with the film. And then we had a premiere that we booked at the Hollywood Theater in Dormont, Pennsylvania. It was probably booked too early because the film wasn't officially edited at that point in time. And long story short, I won't mention his name, but one of the people that were involved with the movie it was a misunderstanding is what it was. Somebody tried to start a bunch of drama for no reason, and he believed them over me and kept the tapes.
Oh, fuck.
So, because we were shooting on film, so he kept all the film, and the movie was never edited properly. Brian Connington came in to save the day and did a little bit of color correcting on what he could, so that it could have the screening that we had. It had a sold out screening at the Dormont Theater, which was exciting, but it wasn't the official cut of the movie, and the movie never officially got released. For a while there, the version that showed at the screening, I did a official bootleg that I put out there for a while, just so people would have something. But you know, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. The acting is like, like all of my friends that acted in that, like it was just like, the acting was subpar, and I didn't know what I was doing, and it never officially got released because of the drama, you know, and said person keeping the footage. So yeah, I mean, it was the growing pains, though. You know what I mean? I don't regret it. Like, it kind of sucks that it happened, but it was like literally the first feature film that I ever tried to make, and it just started off really good and then quickly turned into, you know, a dumpster fire. And I don't have any grudges with anything. I just, you know, my whole thing is I wish that I wasn't under the microscope under such close examination as soon as I started. You know, it would have been nice to just be low key and learn my craft before anybody ever knew who I was. But unfortunately, God's a funny man. He's not human. Like, we're just going to make everybody watch you as you do this for the first time. So
it's like, no pressure.
Yeah, no pressure at all. Yeah. So that was my long-winded answer to that.
That's awesome, though. So you were able to release it, just not everything that had been edited from the other guy.
Yeah, it was just a really rough, unofficial bootleg that I put out there for some of the fans. I think I might have sold a couple hundred copies, and then it was meant to be a limited edition because it wasn't the director's cut. It wasn't what I wanted the world to see, and it wasn't done properly. And then I think five years later, probably, I finally got the film back.
Oh.
But at that point, though, you know, I had already grown as a filmmaker, and it was nothing that I really thought the world needed to see. At that point, you know, after 5 years, I was like, there's just no sense. You know, I was already working on other things. You know, other films were happening, and I just thought there's no sense in going back and revisiting this. But it was a growing experience, and it taught me a lot, and I have a lot of fond memories of it. And that's the thing that sucks, is there are some really badass scenes in that movie that turned out awesome, like especially with some of the military vehicles and the containment officers. There's some really awesome scenes, but then there's also some very bad scenes, just because all I did was round up my friends and say, you want to act in a movie, and they never had acting experience. So yeah, it was like, you know, Yeah. So.
But you have all these memories and all these
Yes,
experiences to talk about.
I do.
um, so after that, what was your next one?
See, this is why I always give advice to filmmakers because, you know, I made that short film, right?
Hmm.
Didn't want anybody to see it. Then they saw it and went to a film festival and won. And I'm like, this is easy. And then Caustic Zombie started off great and then just.
Yeah.
So, after that, I was like, I don't really know if it kind of took the wind out of me. I was like, I really need some time to think because, like I said, I never aspired to be a filmmaker. So I really needed to think about whether I wanted to go through all the hassle of making another movie. So in the meantime, Brian Coddington, who I mentioned, he's also a filmmaker. He wrote a film for his college thesis entitled Tablet of Tales, and he wrote the lead role for the character of Fritz Alistair Murnau, who is the devil in human form. He
Oh.
wrote that he wrote that role for me, and so I acted in his film as the devil in human form, and that was a lot of fun. And yeah, and so then after that I started working on, I was like, all right, you know what, I'm tired of dealing with people. So I've always been an avid fan of stop motion animation films, and there are two filmmakers, they're brothers, originally from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and then later moved to Germany and started making some of the best stop motion films you could ever see. They're called the Quaid brothers, and it's just like really dark, really, really dark. In fact, back in the days, if you remember MTV Liquid Television, how they would
Yes.
have like creepy stop animation commercials, the
Mm-hmm.
Quay brothers did some of them. Not all of them, but the Quay brothers actually did some of those. But they're really dark, really demented. And I was like, yeah, I'd really like to do something like that. Like if you could picture merging like The Evil Dead with like Nightmare Before Christmas and like just making it, like really brutal stop motion where, so I started working on that, and I actually acquired Doug Bradley, who's Pinhead and Hellraiser, and he was
Mm-hmm.
going to do the narration.
I
And
remember that.
Brian and
I remember that
yeah,
project.
yeah, Brian and I helped get Doug Bradley his green card. So he was dating at the time our friend Steph Shulo, who lived like literally like 20 minutes up the road from me.
Mm-hmm.
So we got Doug aboard and met up with him a few times for some meetings. And then Steph was she's an amazing artist. So she came over and she was helping me because I was doing a lot of the sculpting and building, and she was
Mm-hmm.
helping out with that. And we launched a crowdfunding campaign that did pretty good. We got a couple $1,000s right off the bat, like enough to get supplies to start making some buildings. And I'd say we probably had 25% of like everything built, which may not sound like a lot, but there was a lot of tiny buildings and structures. And I lived in a giant artist loft at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I had the room for it, but then all of a sudden the sets just kind of took over a life of their own. And I needed to move everything to an actual warehouse. Well, I needed giant trucks to move everything, and then it's expensive to run a warehouse.
Oh
So
yeah.
I had the money for none of this. And then after we built everything that we had at that point, we used up all the funds for crowdfunding.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of just came to a standstill. And so again, this is still back in my heavy drinking days. And like, because I was building in my loft, I would literally come home to a movie set every single day of my life
Mm-hmm.
that wasn't going anywhere.
Yeah.
And in a very fitting Edgar Allan Poe moment of coming home from the bar completely inebriated at like 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm being haunted by this doll world, that's around me,
Yeah.
and there's spooky forests and mausoleums and creepy structures. And, in a drunken stupor, I just couldn't take the anguish of like it staring at me and nothing was progressing with it. And so I just smashed everything.
I didn't
And
know that. I remember you showing
yeah,
me pictures of the sets when you guys were building them, but I did not know
smashed
that.
it all.
Oh
Smashed
my
it all.
gosh.
Yeah, smashed it all, and was like, fuck it, like it was just a very miserable, depressing point in my life. And it was at that point where it's like, I don't even know if I want to bother, because it started off great, but then Caustic Zombies just didn't work out in the end. And then, Moan Car, which was the title for that film, like it just came to a standstill because we ran out of funds. And I was like, I just can't do this. And, you know, the only thing that saved me was during that time, and I thought that I was going to quit. I got hired to be in 2 episodes of an A&E television show called Those Who Kill.
Oh.
So I was an extra on 2 episodes of A&E's Those Who Kill. I was cast as a punk rocker.
Gee, I wonder why.
Yeah, not typecast or anything. And that actually was an eye-opener because, no offense, like, that show was a really good show. Everybody that I worked with was great. But the cast had no idea, like the crew, I should say, had no idea what the hell they were doing.
Oh.
Like, the AD's yelling at everybody, and like everybody's in chaos and turmoil, and like nobody knew where anybody was at. And I thought, wow, okay, so I've had some problems with my sets, like, just because, mostly financial problems, you know, for the most part, with a little bit of, you know, drama. But for the most part, like, my sets, like, even when Tim Gross, who had the film festival, he came out, like I said, he's one of the most revered horror movie reviewers. He actually came out to a set of filming on Caustic Zombies and then wrote an article about it for his, and he said it was like a well-oiled machine. Like, everything was just boom, 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 like, perfect. And like, I felt very fortunate, like, that my sets were very tight and, you know, professional. And after watching the haphazard chaos of, you know, being on an A&E TV show, I thought, well, shit, okay, you know what? I've had some setbacks, but like, at least my sets will run better than this.
Yeah.
So that kind of gave me a little bit of encouragement to want to keep going. But
That's awesome. Hell yeah. Wow. I didn't know the A&E part.
no, I'm
Did
surprised.
you ever post that? Because I don't think you ever. Really?
All the time? Yeah.
Oh, man. I don't know. Huh.
Yeah.
I don't remember that. I remember a
Yeah, I
lot.
mean,
I don't remember that part.
it was a fun experience. There's a scene where the punk band Anti-Flag is playing, and I'm one of the concert goers right up against the one of the guys. I think the stunt coordinator wanted me and my friend Patch, like, right up against the stage. He's like, "You guys are awesome. Like, I want to put you right in front of the stage so that the camera's on you the whole time." And we're like, "Yeah, it sounds awesome." And like, our sole job was to catch some SAG actor stage diving. And like, he would dive off the stage, would have to catch him and pass him back so that he could crowd surf. But he wasn't a punk. He was just a SAG actor. And he didn't even know how to jump off the damn stage. So I kid you not, like, this kid was bigger than both Patch and I. And we had to do at least, I looked at Patch at one point. I said, for fuck's sakes, how many takes have we done so far? He's like, I lost count at 32.
Holy
Because the kid could not jump off the stage and land correctly. And I'm like, I finally look at the stunt coordinator. I'm like, for the love of God, can I just jump off the damn stage? And he's like, nope, for liability purposes, like, you have to be a SAG actor, and I can't let you do it. And I'm like, I could nail this in one. Just let me jump, dude. Like, let me do it and be done with it. But you know, rules are rules. So we had to do like 30-some takes of catching this dude and finally, like, passing him back. And that was like a whole 8-hour shoot of just doing that.
Damn.
And then when they edited the entire show together, like, you see me for like, there I am, there I'm not. Because it was just like,
it's so quick.
Yeah. So I'm like, wow. But I mean, it was still an experience because I got to do 2 episodes. Like, the other episode that I was on was, you know, Chloe Svegny. It's like,
Oh, yeah.
Okay. On that show. So her and I actually had a scene together. And I was like, that's awesome. It's just her and me. So like, I'm definitely going to have some good camera time on this. And like, the whole thing was, I'm sitting at a table in a bar and I'm smoking a cigarette and I'm drinking a beer. And she like walks right past me and like goes to a cigarette machine that's right behind me and like puts in a couple or dollars, you know, and gets a pack of cigarettes out of the cigarette machine. And then like, so I'm like so excited. Like, the first episode aired that I was on and I was like, well, there I am, there I'm not. But the second episode, you're definitely going to see a lot more of me because it's just Chloe and I. And the room was so dimly lit and I had on like my wide brim fedora, like Sid, like Gary Oldman wore in Sid and Nancy. And so it cast like a shadow over my face. And because the room was dimly lit, like, you just see like a brief lit profile of me.
You're like, that's my profile right there.
And I'm like, hey, that's, you know, I was like, so, but yeah, but it was still, it was cool. And it was a lot of fun. So
At least you have the experience, you know?
yeah, exactly. And I still actually, behind me, oh, this is so convenient. So didn't even mean for this to happen, but because we happen to be upstairs in my studio. So you're not allowed to smoke real cigarettes on the set, as you know.
Oh, I actually
So
didn't know that.
yeah, well, they don't like it because it messes up the equipment, and
Oh, okay.
so they like I had my own cigarettes, and they came over and they're like, you have to put that out here, smoke these, and these are like getting a glare, but it's like honeysuckle kind of some herb shit that tastes like it's like the worst tasting thing in the world. But this is the pack of cigarettes that I smoked on there, and then
Oh.
obviously because you're not allowed to use name brand beer. One of them, I guess this is supposed to be a knockoff of Old Milwaukee. It's called Old Muskogee. So
Muskogee.
that's one of the beers that I drank on set. And then Pennsburg. So we weren't allowed to keep the bottles or anything, but I smuggled them out afterwards because I'm like, I need some souvenirs from this. But
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
so those are my two little souvenirs for being on A&E. And
How'd you smuggle them? Did you just stick them in a bag? Like, how'd they not see you?
I stuck a bottle in my leather jacket, and I think I stuck a bottle down my pants. And then, the pack of cigarettes, I think I just stashed somewhere in one of my other pockets. So, but yeah, I'm like, I'm not walking out of here without at least a couple souvenirs. So.
Oh, yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, I never knew that they didn't smoke real cigarettes. That's crazy.
I mean, I do on my sets. I mean,
Yeah.
it just depends. When we did Noctambulist, we had a scene where there was a speakeasy and people were smoking cigars. I mean, I just gave everybody real cigars.
And that's why your sets are cool, because you do the cool shit.
Hey, you know what? I don't do things half-assed, that's for sure. Why I grew this beard. Maybe we'll get into it later, but one of my next roles, I'm actually going to be making a return to acting and starring, and my character needs to have a beard, so it's, grow the beard in. He's an alcoholic on the set, and during the films, I'm going to be drinking real alcohol because you gotta do it real.
Damn.
So method acting. That's where it's at.
Oh yeah. So the new film, I don't want to jump ahead too much, but the new film.
No, go back to where you need to be. I didn't mean to skip ahead.
Oh no, well, like I just don't want to forget, because Noctambulist, that was an awesome fucking film.
Thank you. And you only saw the friend version.
Oh,
so you only saw what I sent you, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't know there was a version.
I re-edited the film after that.
Oh, okay.
That was a rough draft that you had seen. I fixed up some of the music score with that, and then there's probably maybe 7 additional minutes that you didn't see, and then some other different changes with the editing. But thank you. Yeah, I mean, you saw a rough cut of it, but I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah, I loved it because it's like people obviously don't know yet. Well, I mean, people that know of it, but it was all silent. It was a silent film.
Mm-hmm.
Which
what's that?
Well, at the time, I think I had told you, and I'm sure you've seen it, and I don't know the name of it, but it was a Salvador Dali silent film, and it was
talking about the Disney animated Disney one, or he did the other one. I forget the name of it. I have it. It's a short.
And it's really creepy. Like I remember a bunch of spiders in it, and there was a bunch of like creepy, weird shit in it. It's very, very old.
He actually worked with a couple films. I have it downloaded. I downloaded it offline, and Salvador Dali is my favorite artist. So I'm really making a fool out of myself right now by not remembering the name of the film that you're speaking of. But I have it, and then there's a couple other films that he did little bits and pieces of. But yeah, what inspired me with Noctambulist was, my love for the old films, Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, which will always be one of my favorite films. The Phantom Carriage, just so many of the greats that I've always wanted to do a silent film, but I wanted to wait until I had the ability to do it correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Like I knew that at the time when I was still learning a lot of, and I'm still learning, like there's so many things I still learn every time I do a new project. But, going back 10 years ago, like I knew I wasn't ready then to like successfully make a silent film. And everything kind of just fell into place with Noctambulist. I was just studying a lot of the old shooting techniques because things were shot so much differently with silent movies.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't have all the cuts and all the close-ups. And, I mean, I did speed up the pacing a little bit so it wasn't as slow as the older movies. And I did do a little bit more of some of the modern like cutaway effects and whatnot. But with a lot of the effects, I tried to, or with a lot of the camera angles, like the Dutch camera angle, which I use often, where, the camera's above the actors and kind of down on them a bit. Like that was a huge technique, back in silent cinema. And I tried to implement a lot of that in with Noctambulist and stay as true to the old films, but yet give it a little bit more modern vibe. So. It wasn't a financially wise decision to do, and that movie released last year. So in 2019, not too many people watch a silent movie these days, but I did it for me, for the art, because it's what I felt compelled to make. So. And it actually screened at the Worldcon International 75 Film Festival in Helsinki, Finland. So that was awesome to get chosen for a festival and know that people over in Finland were showing up at the theaters to watch Noctambulist. That was pretty cool. But it's definitely much more of a European style film. Like people in Europe dig it a lot more. It's more of a European art film, so to speak, than what most, Americans are into.
Most Americans.
They want explosions and boobs popping out on the screen and all that kind of stuff. So, I don't know. But yeah, it's my baby. It's the only film that I ever will take credit for. Like I said, I never liked being examined under the microscope with my earlier work, but that even includes my documentary that came out in 2014, Blood on the Grill. That was such a piece of shit. So it's as far as I'm concerned, Noctambulist is the only film that matters, because that was my baby, and I love how it turned out.
Well, and you even with the sets and the clothes, you made sure everything was time period, right?
For the most part. Mm-hmm. There's some Puritans out there that could probably pick apart something and say, well, that's not. But for the most part, the average viewer, for the most part, is going to see, so the thing about it was I used to be, so many people would say this to me, I used to be a guerrilla style filmmaker, where it would be you just pick up a camera, you load as many people as you can in the car, and you just go out and you film a movie, And it was about 2000, it was right around the time of Blood on the Grill. Again, I didn't know if I wanted to continue making films, just because, it's such a hassle to get locations and permits and cast and crew and this, that, and the other. And I'm just maybe I'll just focus on writing more books and working on my artwork instead. But, it was at that point where I'm look, if I'm going to make a movie, I got really anal about it. I'm I need to be as meticulous as possible, especially trying to do a period film, So we had early 1920s Model T car in the film, and most of the wardrobe we tried to keep as authentic as possible. There's a point where my lead actor, Nicholas, who plays the character Stellan, he's wearing a pair of patent leather shoes, and fear just came over me one day. I'm oh my God, when did they start wearing patent leather shoes? I had to look it up, and actually it fit within the era. But I don't think that the treads on the bottom of the shoes were era appropriate. But it's that's such a minor little thing, you know what I mean? That it's okay, if you really want to pick apart the film, you could look for that little flaw, but who else would really notice that?
Yeah.
But for the most part, I tried to be as meticulous as possible with the sets, and it happened to be the film that fell into place, because when I moved to Maryland, I met a lady that's a hair and makeup artist, and I was doing a music video for a band that was coming in from the UK, and the locations for the music video kind of changed based on one of the other people involved with the video, and we were going to be filming in PA, then we were going to be filming in Maryland, and it was all over the place because this kid couldn't keep a house. He kept getting kicked out of everywhere that he lived. So finally, we just decided on a place that was in Pennsylvania to shoot the music video, and the hair and makeup artist was look, I can't travel to PA to do this, because I have a day job. So she's keep me in mind if you ever need me in the future. So when it came time for Noctambulist, I reached out to her. Her name's Buffy Roman Fox.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, oh my God, I would love to do this. And let me introduce you to some of my friends. So she introduced me to two of her best friends, Bonnie Shipley Peel and Steve Summerlin. And they have this beautiful house over on the Eastern Shore in Maryland, and it's all furnished with 1920s antiquities.
Oh, wow.
They're like, you can film here, and you
Hell
can
yeah.
use all of our 1920s furniture and, everything that you need. And you might remember the scene with without giving too much away, the ferryman.
The what?
The ferryman in the
Uh-huh.
movie that takes the little girl across the Stygian shores and all that stuff. Like that's actually also in their backyard. So not only did they have all the 1920s
Oh,
antiquities, but they had the creepy woods and they had the boat dock and they had the private pond and like just everything was available at my fingertips to film.
wow. It was
Yeah, so
meant
it
to
worked out.
be.
Yeah, it was definitely meant to be. So, that's my baby. And if you get a chance, watch the official release that's out there.
Well,
So
yeah, I will. I didn't know that that you had edited, like re-edited. I didn't know that.
yeah, that was a rough draft that I sent you, and I think at one point there was a slight continuity issue with one of the wardrobes, so I had to fix that. And
Oh,
then um, there's a scene where I thought it could have just been a little bit more involved, and I had some appropriate footage that I decided to add to that scene to just
okay.
expand on the one scene a little bit more. So, and then the music got a complete overhaul with that. So I don't even know, maybe 60% of the soundtrack might be different than the rough cut that you saw. So
Oh,
there's,
shit. Okay.
so
I'll
there's,
watch it
there's,
then.
you can watch it on Amazon. I think it's free on Amazon Prime
Cool.
right
Okay.
now. So yeah, but
I didn't know that either. Jeez.
yeah. Or anybody that wants to buy it, you can get it at Best Buy, Target, Walmart, Amazon, all the major movie retailers. Throw that little plug out there. But
Shit, hell yeah, definitely. So how did you get distribution? Because with it being at Best Buy and or Best Buy and Walmart and all that stuff, how do you do that?
that actually happened because, excuse me, I briefly mentioned the documentary that I don't like that I did
Yeah.
in 2014 called Blood on the Reel. And basically, with that, let's see. So, Dagger Vision Film started in 2010. And I always said that if I made it 5 years, that I wanted to release something special for people. Because
Hmm.
5 years is a long time in the indie world. Because a lot of people make one movie and they quit and they give up because they
Yeah.
realize like it takes a lot of money or it takes a lot of time and commitment or a lot of internal turmoil with drama that people are just like, I quit, I'm done. Like, it's not worth my time.
Hmm.
So for an indie company that's running on very minimal um, budget to make films, like 5 years is a relatively long time. So at that point, I was coming up on 5 years. Um, I moved to Maryland. So Brian and I parted ways. I didn't have a cast or crew. Still didn't have any of my own equipment. And I'm like, man, guess I'm not going to do anything for a 5-year anniversary because there's just no way for me to make a film. And I thought about re-releasing Samhain Night Feast, and I thought about re-releasing it with like a bunch of bonus features, basically a mini documentary, which
Yeah.
was just me talking about the trials and tribulations that independent filmmakers go through. During Caustic Zombies, there were times where I didn't know if I was going to be able to pay my mortgage. Um,
Hmm.
because I was putting all that money into my film, like a lot of sacrifices. I almost got shot by military police making Caustic Zombies.
Fuck.
Um, the premise behind Caustic Zombies was that it started from a near nuclear mishap. Me being from PA, you might be familiar hearing stories about 3 Mile Island that happened in the 70s, where they had a near nuclear meltdown, and one of the reactors melted down, and there was a certain percentage of a certain radius that was infected by radiation leak in Pennsylvania in the 70s. So it was like our own little mini Chernobyl, except for luckily it didn't get that bad. They stopped it in time. But
Wow.
radiation still got out. And, my whole thing was, okay, radioactive zombies, like the radioactive leak, that's what, yeah. So 3 Mile Island was probably 5.5 to 6 hours away from where I lived when we were filming. So that was going to be a little bit of a haul because I wanted the actual reactors in the movie.
Oh.
But my production manager says, in Homer City, Pennsylvania, there's a power plant and their reactors look exactly the same, even though it's not a nuclear power plant. You could use that and it's
Mhm.
only 20 minutes up the road, nobody would be the wiser.
Much better.
Yeah. So keep in mind, this is post 9/11.
Yeah.
And again, being a guerrilla filmmaker, we all just loaded in the car. My buddy John, who was the production manager, and our cameraman, and myself, we all loaded in the car, drove out to the power plant, just drove right on the government property. No care in the world. And we're filming everything. I'm filming the radioactive, or not the radioactive towers, but I'm filming the power plant towers, and I'm filming the woods and everything. And I mean, you have to have government clearance to get on property. Well,
Did you know that?
maybe, maybe not. I don't know. I can't remember. That was a long time ago. I can't remember. But let's just say that after we shot for a couple minutes, you could hear a Jeep coming towards us, or some type of vehicle. And the next thing you know, this military Jeep comes flying up over the hill. One dude dressed in camo, military garb, was driving. Another military dude standing up, gun drawn on us. In all fairness to them, they didn't know what we were doing there. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
We shouldn't have been there in the first place. But, as an independent filmmaker, you do what you can to get your movie made. Even if it risks getting arrested or shot, you gotta
Or shot.
So,
We
yeah,
might get shot, but we'll have some good footage.
yeah. So, I thought for sure we were going to get shot, and, they wanted to confiscate the footage. And eventually they just told my cinematographer, can you please turn the camera off? Now, he claims that he turned it off. Well, let's just say he told the dude, he's like, okay, I shut it off. But he claims to me that he kept rolling the whole time. And apparently he lost that footage.
Oh, man.
So I don't know. I never got to see it. He says that it once existed. Maybe it'll resurface someday. But that was so. Anyway.
So he's got it somewhere.
Yeah. So I digress. There was a lot of trials and tribulations, and a lot of so Caustic Zombies didn't work out the way that I wanted it to. Then the movie with Doug Bradley fell through. And it was just like all this stuff, and I thought, well, maybe I'll re-release Night Feast and then do like a mini documentary on the trials and tribulations. And I kind of made a post about it on Facebook. And then the next thing you know, I had over 100 filmmakers from all over the world saying, we have stories that we want to share.
Wow.
Filmmakers from the UK and New Zealand and Canada and you name it. And I thought, well, I don't have the budget to jet set around the world and interview all these filmmakers. So I devised a way where I'm like, you know what? I'll just come up with a bunch of questions. I'll email it to them, and they're filmmakers. So I'll just have them set up their cameras and their audio gear on their end, and then they'll film their response and send it over to me through Google Drive, whatever. And so the idea behind it was great. But some of the filmmakers sent me really great quality footage, some of them not good at all. The audio was like all over the place. Some of it was like almost inaudible. There was a bunch of problems with that. You have 5-8 different file formats. Nobody was consistent with, their files. And like I said, some you had really beautiful, nice, well-lit backdrops and the sound sounded great, and then other ones. So with that movie, I sent it out to 2 different sound houses just to try to get them to get a balance on the audio, but they still could only do so much with it. And because of the little things like that, and because I didn't film it, if I actually went to the locations and set up my own camera and did my own lighting and controlled the sound, and then everything was the same, there was continuity there, then I'd be like, okay, that was my film. But it was more kind of like a mixtape that I just kind of threw together. But that actually is what got, in a very long-winded story, that's what got my distribution deal. Because SGL found out about the documentary, and they were just like, wow, this is super cool. Nobody has ever done a documentary quite like you're doing with interviewing all these filmmakers and doing it. Lloyd Kaufman has a documentary, trying to educate people that are looking to get into filmmaking, but nobody really put together a documentary where they're interviewing filmmakers from all over the world. And talking about their trials and tribulations, and other filmmakers almost getting arrested for trying to get their movie made, or what they do to compensate for budgets or lack thereof, and all the drama and stuff like that. So Blood on the Reel was good because it got me a distribution deal. Boy, I think that I've learned so much in that short period of time since that documentary was done that I wished I could do that all over again. So that's why I say I don't know how to put it, but to me, as far as I'm concerned, Noctambulous is the only film that I've ever done that's a Johnny Daggers film. That's the first film that I knew what I was doing, and it's the first film. It's the first film that I did the cinematography on. So I wrote the script, I did the cinematography on it, I did the lighting, I helped, just as much with all the costuming and the set locations, and I edited the movie and like was like completely full on with that. So it's like if you love it or you hate it, like that's me. Like
Yeah.
that was my film, and I love it. It's my baby. So it's like, as far as I'm concerned, like I think like that is the only film that defines me as a filmmaker. So
Damn. That's so cool. Well, I just now added it on Prime because I didn't know it was on there. So I
oh,
added it because I want to rewatch it because I really enjoyed the version you sent me. So I want to
oh,
see
thank
what
you.
you did.
Oh, and there's a beautiful new intro to the movie that you didn't even get to see. Like
Okay.
I spent so much time filming this, and I don't know why I didn't use it in the initial cut. I was just like, I don't know, maybe I was just second guessing my abilities to like edit it together properly. But
Mhm.
I finally decided like to just go for it. And like, I think it's so beautiful. Like there's a very beautiful intro for the opening credits. Like it's very pretty. So I like it anyway. So
Well, I'm sure I
you'll have
will
to let me
too.
know what you think.
Oh, I will. Definitely. Definitely. So I'll watch it. I think I want to watch it tonight or tomorrow. I'm all excited. I'm
Cool.
like, woohoo, I can't
Oh,
wait.
good. I can't wait. I'm excited to hear your thoughts on it.
Hell yeah. I will let you know for sure. Okay. So the beard, what are you working on that's causing you to grow a beard? I've never seen you with a beard in 14
Well,
years. I have never, you've always been clean shaven.
yeah, always. I'm getting fond of it though. Like I've been putting
It
hair
looks
product.
good.
Thanks. It's soft. Like it's really soft now. But so I can't really go into a whole lot with my next film because I'm trying to keep it under wraps as much as possible. I will tell you as much as I can tell you.
Okay.
Um, it's called The Art of Defiance,
Okay.
and it's the life of a painter, and I played the painter. And of course, it's my first complete departure from horror. Like Noctambulist has horror elements. Like I would consider Noctambulist more of like a suspense thriller. Like I wouldn't really call it much of a horror movie. Like it's
Yeah.
more of a psychological thriller,
Yeah.
which is what I love. But I mean, it's not like there's no boogeyman or a lot of things like that. So I don't really like Noctambulist. I was trying to very easily leave the horror genre just because I don't want to be pigeonholed. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like, as a creator, you should be able to create without somebody saying, well, he's only good at horror movies or he's only good at romance films or this. So I
Mhm.
wanted to do something. So Noctambulist was kind of a little bit of a gradual departure from horror, which still had horror elements to it. And then with The Art of Defiance, it's going to be a complete departure from the world of horror. But it is a backlash against our current society.
Oh,
I can
okay.
say that. I think that everybody is too. I'm trying to think of how to put this rationally. I guess I'm just going to leave it at that. It's a backlash to a lot of the things that are going on right now that I don't really like with our socio-political climate. I just
Okay.
think that, maybe I'll tell you about it a bit off the screen.
Okay.
There's right now you would think that there would be a film out there like this, and so far there isn't. My luck, probably somebody will make one similar before I get mine filmed.
Oh shit.
Why I'm, that's why I'm being so
Secretive.
secretive.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you when we're off air. I'll give
Okay.
you a sneak peek on it. But yeah, so I'm playing the lead of a painter, and I just wanted to change up my appearance for it and start getting into character. I mean, we might be still another year away from filming, but like again, as a method actor, I live a lot of my current life now trying to I walk around the house every day reciting lines and pretending that I'm that character, and grew the beard in already so I can start feeling like that character and
Mhm.
really just throwing myself into the role as much as I can.
Damn. When do you start filming?
I don't know yet. I'm not going to push it. Like that's the one thing that I learned with the past films like Caustic Zombies and the Monarch Car with Doug Bradley and everything like that is it's like there was such a rush, and with Noctambulist I didn't put a rush on it. I'm like, we're doing a period piece, and when
Mhm.
everything comes together, it'll come together. Like I think we started production on Noctambulist in 2014. 2015 maybe. I know that Blood on the Reel had just completed, and I don't even think it hit the shelves yet, and I had already started on Noctambulous. But Noctambulous took 3 or 4 years.
Really? Oh, I didn't know
And
that.
I'm glad that it did. Yeah, I mean, there was the writing the script, and then
Mhm.
there was the casting, and then there was getting all the locations, and then there was filming, which took almost 10 months just because of
Mhm.
some of the actresses' schedules. Then there was a minor riff with the distribution company, and I took my film back and said, "Screw you, I'll self-release it." And then we kind of kissed and made up in a way. Um, so yeah, because I admit like things have to be done my way, and if I'm not happy, I'm not going to release it. So
Well,
I mean,
yeah.
you have to. It's your baby. If you're putting all that into it, you
Mhm.
can't. I'm not really one to sacrifice things easy, especially because I consider that movie my baby, and it is.
Mhm.
So I was very protective of it. But we kissed and we made up, and then they released it. So I mean, it didn't get released until 2019, and we started production in 2015. So I look at Art of Defiance. I still have to find some of my uh, cast members and some of my crew and locations. And I don't
Mhm.
want to rush it. Like if it takes another year before we start production, like I'm cool with that. Like
Yeah.
the end result is what matters. Like as long because it has to be as beautiful as Noctambulist, if not better. Like
Yeah.
because every movie has to be better and better. So
Yes.
I'm not gonna hurry it anymore. So it's up in the air, but that's what I'm working on at the moment. Well, in the spare time. I mean, right now I'm just focused on doing a lot of artwork too, so that I neglected for too long. So the film will happen when it's ready.
Yeah. Well, that's good. Speaking of the art, um, what give kind of an idea of what kind of art you've been doing? I know you do a lot. You're very artistic regardless, but it's wood burning, right?
Yeah, wood burning.
It's
That's what I do.
amazing.
Oh, thank you, thank you.
I didn't know you could
Yeah,
like, I mean, basically draw. It's drawing. I didn't know that you could do that.
it's like tattooing, to be honest. And
Yeah, there you
I
go.
used to work in a tattoo shop, so I mean, it's very much the same, except for instead of human skin, you have wood. But
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, I've been painting and drawing my entire life. Um, I dropped out of high school, but before I dropped out of high school, I had two small scholarships to the Academy of Art in San Francisco
Wow.
and the Art Institute of Pittsburgh. But then I decided, like halfway through 12th grade, like screw school, I'm gonna drop out and be a musician, and all that stuff. So there went like any college. So
Yeah.
didn't do that, but worked on art for a little while, here and there, and then I kind of just gave it up. And as you know, over the years with the music, and then eventually getting into films and doing magazines, like art kind of just didn't do it anymore. And then in 2011, you may remember this. I started Psychomancer Industries, where I was doing custom Ouija boards. Do you remember
I
that?
remember that. Yes.
So it's funny because originally I was just going to wood burn. And I had never really wood burned before, but I bought a like a very cheap wood burning kit at Walmart and tried to wood burn, and it was a failure. So instead of wood burning, I just started hand painting a bunch of custom Ouija boards. And that was about the time that in Pittsburgh, they were thinking about tearing down the Evans City Chapel, which is used in the opening scene of Night of the Living Dead. When they pull into the cemetery, you see
Oh,
the chapel right off the bat. And over the years, it became dilapidated and in disrepair. And the city council had voted they were actually going to tear down the chapel. Well, then a bunch of, horror fans in the area decided, like, we need to save the chapel. And that was all spearheaded by Gary Schreiner, who was George Romero's right-hand man in Night of the Living Dead. So Gary and I were friends, and I was doing the custom Ouija boards. And basically what Gary had in mind was that he was going to create an auction so that artists from all over the world could create art and then send it to him, and he would have auctions and sell off these pieces of art, and in return all the proceeds would go to raise money to fix the chapel so that they could save it from being torn down. And I reached out to Gary and I was like, hey, look, I'm doing these custom Ouija boards. I'd be really happy to do a Night of the Living Dead Ouija board, donate it to you. And he was like, wow, yeah, like I'd be honored. Like that would be like the one and only official Night of the Living Dead Ouija board. So I'm blessed. I got to do like the official one and only Night of the Living Dead Ouija board. I didn't wood burn that. That was all painted with acrylics, and it was all done in black and grays to pay respect to the movie. And Gary auctioned that off to raise money for the chapel. And after that, like things in my life just kind of happened. Certain personal issues happened, and I just kind of got away from art again altogether. And then about a year ago, just for something to do in between filming and writing the books, got another wood burning kit. And oddly enough, I couldn't wood burn before, but then as soon as I picked it up this time, I started doing portraits like right off the bat that were like turning out really fucking awesome.
Hell yeah. I want an
So
Evil
then I
Dead
decided,
one.
oh yeah, the Ash
So
is
good.
really one of my favorites, and the Jack Torrance from The Shining was really
Yes.
cool. But so I launched Hope and Anchor Customs, and a lot of what people requested me is horror. But then lately, like that's a lot of it's changed. I do a lot of family portraits and dogs, and you know, a lot of whatever anybody commissions me to do. But I love it. And speaking of, so for my next movie, Art of Defiance, like I'm creating a bunch of giant original wood burning pieces that are going to be used in the movie, and also a bunch of original paintings since I'm a painter in the film. Like, so right now, like I'm focusing, and that's another thing, like about not really knowing when I'll get to film. Like I have so many paintings I have to create for the movie, and so many wood burnings and things that I have to create myself that'll be showcased in the film. But anyway, yeah, so like right now, like I'm really focused on Hope and Anchor Customs just because it's a creative outlet. And, you know, with the films, like the film distribution, like, you know, you don't make a ton of money being a filmmaker, even if you have distribution deals. And, you know, you only get paid every quarter, like you don't get a weekly paycheck. So like you need something to do in spare time. And so, you know, Hope and Anchors, you know, enables me to still create and, you know, be productive and help out a little bit. So, but I enjoy it.
Yeah. Well, it looks like you're doing good though, too. I mean, you got a lot of pieces that you're selling.
Yeah, I was very shocked at, you know, how successful and how receptive everybody was. But yeah, it's been going really good. So I dig it.
Yeah. You're kind of amazing. You do so much. It's so cool because it's neat that to see, you know, because we have known each other for so long, just to see how much you can do. And every, you know, every few years or every year, you're doing something different. And it's just awesome to see your growth and changes and just so much. You're an inspiration, Johnny.
Oh, geez. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. And I appreciate you and, you know, being on the show today. It's been, you know, it's a lot of fun. I just try to do what I can. I don't think I'm a master at anything. Like I don't have, like, it's funny because people think I have this big ego. I don't know. I think it's the way I come off. People like, there's a difference between being confident and being an egomaniac. Like I think everybody should be confident in themselves. But I am definitely not a master of anything. I do a lot of things, but I'm not a master at any one thing. And I just enjoy doing what I do. And I still like, man, like not only do I not have an ego, but it's like even when I put out artwork or even a movie, like I'm always like, oh man, like I'm embarrassed for anybody to even look at this. So, you know, it's like, I think as an artist, like you should always feel that way. You should always be humbled by what you put out. So I appreciate, you know, that I'm an inspiration, but I'm definitely not a master of anything. And I just do what I can do and you know, try to stay humble and cool about it all. Cause, you know, I see people on a daily basis that blow my mind. And I'm just like, man, they're so gifted. So
yeah.
But you know, you only live once, so I just try to do everything that I want to do.
Yeah. Well,
I don't want to be on my deathbed. What's that?
And so you're fucking doing everything. It's like you do everything. There's even things like that we were talking. I was like, oh shit, I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
It was just crazy. Yeah, you do a lot. But so I guess we're hitting the end of our show.
Well, I appreciate you.
Yeah, I'm so glad you came on. It's, you know, like I said, it's been so long that we've known each other, and I'm so glad to finally do something with you. You know what I mean? It's like, we've talked
Yeah,
over the years and whatever, but it's cool to have you on, and it's like, we did something. So it's awesome.
we did. We did. Well, I mean, you're one of my oldest, dearest friends. I love you. It's good to be on the show. Like, who knows? Who knows? Maybe one of these days, if I'm still making a movie, like that's the thing I always threaten. Like, I'm like, that's it, I'm done. I guess just to keep people guessing. I don't know. Is he done? Is he going to make more? What's he doing? I don't know what I'm doing from day
It's
to
like,
day.
you don't even know. So
But if I do, decide if maybe you're still doing a podcast 5 years from now, and you're still acting because you're a talented actress. I've seen you've sent me some of the projects that you were on. Like I think maybe about a year ago, you were involved with a couple of films, and so I mean, maybe you'll act in something that I do if I'm still doing it. Who knows?
Oh yeah, that'd be amazing. I've been asking you for 14 fucking years.
Yeah, I know. One of these days. I mean, I do have certain things like I tease and I say, that's it, I'm making one more movie and then I'm done. And for, some people might cheer that and other people might boo that. But, there are still things I want to do with film, even though I say I'm done. Like, I would love to try. I'd like to go. See, that's the thing that sucks, though. Like, because when you don't have a budget, people beat you to the punch with things. And then
Oh
people
yeah.
think that people just think that, like, you're copying
Yeah.
other people, you know. But one of the movies that I grew up loving, and not to hold you up because I know the show's winding
Oh no, you're
down,
fine.
but before Alex Cox did Sid and Nancy, which I know you and I both love Sid
Yes.
and Nancy. When Alex Cox was doing Sid and Nancy, he had some money left over and was like, hey, let's make a really weird spaghetti western type thing. So he got a lot of the same actors that were in Sid and Nancy. Got Xander Sloss, who was in the Circle Jerks. He played the wiener boy named Carl in that movie. I actually had him on my radio show last year, which was so cool that I had Xander Sloss, who was in Sid and Nancy. And he was in Sid and Nancy. He was one of the guys at the bar with Nancy when she was crying about how Sid's not practicing. But everybody else in the band fucked up the show. Anyway, so he was on the show. But anyway, it had Elvis Costello in it. Joe Strummer was one of the lead actors in it. I think I might have told you about this movie before. But it was Alex Cox's movie, like right after Sid and Nancy. Well, originally what had happened was the Pogues, the Clash, and Courtney Love and a couple other people were supposed to go on tour in Europe. And then they didn't have enough money to go on tour.
Oh, that's crazy.
So they had money, but like it wasn't enough to give them a European tour. So Alex Cox was like, hey, let's just take this money and make a movie. And so he made this really bizarre spaghetti western called Straight to Hell. And it's so campy, and it's so, you got to check it out. I just bought
really familiar.
What's that?
It sounds really familiar.
You got to check it out. I know that they came out with like some type of collector's edition that I bought like last year. So because of that, it's possible that even though it's obscure, that it could be on Amazon. I'm not sure, but it's awesome. But I would like to, like one of my best friends, Phil Lear, he's an awesome painter. We went to high school together. We had a lot of the same art classes together. He eventually moved to Colorado Springs. He's doing some really awesome work. So check out Phil Lear. Amazing, brilliant painter. But he keeps begging me to come out there. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to come out to Colorado Springs and I'm going to film this Western movie. And like, it's going to be like this cheesy spaghetti Western like thing, and now I hear like, Danzig's doing like a vampire Western or something like that.
Oh man.
So like, I don't want people to be like, oh, he's just jumping, but like, because of Straight to Hell, which Alex Cox is one of my all-time favorite filmmakers. Like I've always wanted to do like some weird spaghetti Western. So you never know. Maybe one day I'll be like, hey, you need to come out to Colorado Springs. We're going out there to shoot.
Oh yeah. Fuck yeah, I'll be there. That's what, well, I'm not from Colorado Springs. I'm from Denver, but it's closer to me anyways than Pennsylvania.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's where I'm from. I partied in Colorado Springs. Yeah.
I think after all these years of being friends, I don't think I knew that.
Really? Yeah. Yep. I grew up down there, so I know exactly where you're talking about.
Yeah, apparently he lives down the road from where Tesla had his lab and stuff like that.
Oh, okay. I didn't even know Tesla was from there, but
yeah. Apparently he had a lab there. His Phil has a son that's like maybe 9 or 10 years old. He's like really, really into science. So Phil messaged me one day all excited because he had just taken his son out to see, where Tesla had one of his labs or what have you. So it was interesting. But yeah, so anyway, I do appreciate being on the show. It was definitely a lot of fun. It flew by. I feel like we chatted for like half hour. So
I know. Yeah, it went by really quick. And it's like I'm looking and we've been talking for 2.5 hours. Doesn't feel like it though. It really went by quick. And even we talked like what, 30, 45 minutes beforehand.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, oh, we talked about our dogs. I'm like, my dog is probably going nuts right because I'm up in my studio.
Doing the pee dance.
Oh, she's probably downstairs going nuts for me right now. That's okay. It was good to
She's like, where's my dad? Well, real quick then, go ahead and do if there's where people can find you, anything, any shout outs that you want to give, your Instagram, your Facebook, just where to find you and your films.
Ooh, I'm always terrible at remembering URLs. You could find Noctambulist and sadly Blood on the Reel if you want to torture yourself for 2 hours.
I want to watch it.
Amazon, Best Buy, Target, Walmart, all the major movie retailers. I definitely highly recommend Noctambulist if you're into silent neo-noir thrillers. Blood on the Reel is a documentary that has some good points, but it's really crudely shot. Like, it's just rough. Because, like I said, of all the different filmmakers filming their own parts, and some people said good stuff, some people said not so good. So, it's whatever. But Noctambulist is what to check out. Instagram, I don't know, I'm Johnny Daggers Official, I think. You can
let's look real quick.
Yeah, you can look at. I'm not a very social person or social. I don't like using social media much anymore. Just I don't know. So I don't remember.
Johnny_Daggers.
There you go. Thank you. I appreciate it. And then there's the Johnny Daggers page on Facebook, which I haven't updated until this show. Like there's a couple things I haven't even posted in months, but yeah, it's whatever. I like to be like real low key,
kind of under the radar.
Yeah, if you find me, you find me. Like all my favorite bands or artists that I've ever liked were, especially back in the days before internet, like you had to search high and low to find them. And then when you did, it was like, yay, this is cool. So I'm not very I don't communicate a lot on social media anymore. Like I just kind of withdrew from everything. But if you message me kindly and say hi, I'll gladly say hi back, I think. I don't know.
It might be like 5 days later, but you'll get to it.
I don't know. Somebody messaged me last night, which was weird. They were like, hey, I saw your post on Facebook. They messaged my private email. And they're like, hey, some girl. She's like, I saw your Facebook post. It was like real vague. And then she sent an attachment, a picture of her face or something that I didn't even open up. And I just like put it right in the trash bin because I'm like, this is just creepy. Now, in all fairness to the girl, she could have been just a fan of something, and maybe she had a question because she commented on the Hope and Anchors jacket that I posted. Maybe, but I was just like, nah, you're going to the trash bin. Just because I'm like,
she's stalking you.
Yeah, it was just a weird, vague email. But if you email me politely and be like, hey man, like and don't seem like a stalker, I will reply.
Yeah, I won't trash your message.
Yeah.
All right. Awesome. So I'm just going to give a couple thanks real quick. So I definitely want to thank you for coming on. You're my first guest, and this was it was so much fun. I loved it. I've been looking forward to this for like weeks. I'm like, fuck yeah, I can't wait. I want to thank Crazy Ink Publishing for taking on my series, Broken Halo. So Broken Halo, the first one, and the second one, Broken Halo Blood Curse, are both available on Amazon right now. Third one, I believe, will be released in January. I'll keep people updated on it. Follow Sinister Parlor Podcast on Facebook and Instagram, also on YouTube. I want to thank Matthew Price Thompson with MPT Graphics for doing my show artwork. And I want to thank you too for doing that really badass flyer. That was super cool.
Ooh. It'll be cooler once the show airs. That was just kind of like a quick thing. But yeah, you're welcome with that.
Yeah, that was cool. I like that. And then some of the other stuff that you sent me that I will start loading here soon. It was badass. I love it. I want to thank Chris Atella for doing my intro and outro music. He also did it for my previous show, and he's just an amazing artist. I want to thank and also check out Horror with Sir Sturdy. He's how I had started podcasting, and I've been recording a little bit with him, and we have some upcoming stuff coming up. So I'll let people know on that. Christopher Inlow, I've worked with him on quite a few acting projects. We've done radio stuff together, and he will be co-hosting here and there with me. So I want to thank him for coming on board with me. And then, just all of my friends, family, and supporters. I thank everybody for listening and sharing and just being amazing. And with that, we are done.
See ya, and thank you.
Yeah.